Welcome to another episode of the Mindgasms podcast. Going to talk with Mark Volk today from the Mixed Mental Arts Group, and I wanted to talk to you, like I said, because you had mentioned that you voted for Trump, and I see I see a lot of the time people talking about how you must just be an awful person if you voted for Trump. So, like I said, I wanted to talk about how there are understandable reasons that people chose to vote for Trump over Hillary Clinton. So, um, I guess to start off, mm, well, what brought you to mixed mental arts? I guess is a good place to start.
I don't know if you remember Luke. He was on the Facebook group as well. He's the one that invited me to it.
Luke
He,
Calor.
yep, that's him.
Yeah. Okay.
So he just thought it was a fun group that had lots of interesting discussions, and we also had lots of interesting discussions privately. So he sent me a invite, and he was right. It was a good
Cool.
time.
Yeah, it is. There are lots of interesting discussions on there. I mean, there are disagreements for sure, but I definitely learn a lot from those conversations too.
Yeah, I left a while ago. I'm not sure. I don't remember why anymore, but
Was it because people were calling you an evil racist?
no, I think I was incognito enough.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I never really got into fights about that.
Oh, well, that's good. So, do you want to talk a little bit about I know you had clarified when we were talking about this before that um, you're not a fan of Trump, but you chose to vote for him over Hillary Clinton. And so, do you want to talk about like the the advantages, at least during the 2016 election, the advantages to you of Trump over Clinton?
Um, I think almost the sole reason that I voted for Trump over Clinton was for the Supreme Court picks.
Okay.
The main motivating factor for me is I just love America, and I saw Hillary as a candidate that would go down the road of diminishing the United States instead of strengthening it. And
Okay.
I didn't have any feelings about whether Trump would do the opposite or not. I just knew that certain factors would force him to pick certain Supreme Court justices who would
Okay.
stand up for what I thought is good for America.
Okay. So in terms of political decisions that Hillary Clinton had made before, like what Supreme Court justices she would pick, and how how would she, in terms of that, what were the specifics for Supreme Court justices, and what would she have done, do you think, that would made America worse in some ways than Trump?
I think the justices that she would have picked would have weakened the First and Second Amendment almost beyond repair because they're very close to being dissolved as it is in every practical sense.
Okay. What do you think she would have done to contribute to that?
Again, it wasn't necessarily even her in particular. I just knew that conversely, that factors would force her to pick certain Supreme Court justices that would, you know, weaken gun rights, weaken speech rights, which are the first two amendments. Pretty important stuff, at least in my opinion.
Okay. And would you say that Trump is strengthening the First and Second Amendments?
Uh, Hindsight, probably not necessarily,
Okay.
but at
So,
the time,
sorry.
at the time, it seemed like he was the better choice.
Okay. So I mean, it seems like he well, like pretty much every president, he's sort of gone back on some of his campaign promises, I would say. Would you agree with that?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. So, like the First and Second Amendment, those were some of the ways that he did so.
Um, yeah, I would say so.
Okay. So,
But
do you
it's
think?
not necessarily his. I guess the candidate really didn't matter to me. It was the Supreme Court justices.
Okay.
So I feel like the Supreme Court justices that he elected are, number one, they're fairly moderate, and two, they're very, what would you say? The word slipped. They adhere to the Constitution as it's interpreted, meant to be
Okay.
written, meant to be understood by those who wrote it.
Okay. And do you know who they are? I don't know who they are.
Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh.
Oh, Kavanaugh, of course. Yeah.
I feel like there's one more now that I think about it, but maybe not. No, there was just two.
Okay.
So Neil
And
Gorsuch is like a almost like a Mike Pence conservative. I don't, but he's also just a judge. He's not an activist like certain other justices tend to be.
oh, okay.
Like
So,
he interprets the law as close as possible, given any inherent biases. Kavanaugh,
okay.
I'm not so sure about because I really haven't paid that much attention since his confirmation, but it
Okay.
seems like he's fairly moderate. Like he's voted against certain conservative values, or at least left it open to, because the United States wasn't formed as like a conservative government. It was just a democracy, a liberal democratic republic, and the
Right.
Constitution can change at any point.
Yeah. Obviously, there've been a lot of amendments to it, right?
Hmm.
So, um, who do you think Hillary Clinton would have selected as Supreme Court justices, or do you have an idea?
No, I don't think. I think at the time she submitted a list of potentials, but I didn't look into it that much. I just
Okay.
know from the things that she said that they probably would not have been interpreting the law as it's written. They would have been stretching it
Okay.
loosely.
So, hmm. So, would like do you want to talk sort of about the some of the factors that I think kind of contributed to like some other people voting for Trump, like him talking about like talking about helping the working class and being against identity politics and stuff like that, which a lot of people have been talking about are some of the reasons that people have might have been more drawn toward Trump and again away from Hillary Clinton.
Sure. I didn't just vote for Trump. I actually assisted with the conversion of several other people to vote for Trump, and their motivations. Like some of them voted for Obama in the previous election. Some of them were going to vote for Bernie. That was actually probably one of the largest things I noticed among people that were the people that flipped their vote was they didn't like what happened to Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's go into that a little bit more about how like people who voted for Obama and people who were wanted to vote for Bernie but were like disgusted with the what the DNC did, which is like basically sabotage his election in favor of Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, the one friend that I have, we used to work together, and we would talk about it almost every day. And he was a big Bernie bro. Um, Probably would have characterized his entire political history up to that point was like a liberal. I don't know if I would say the conversations we had mostly centered around like healthcare and drug legalization, stuff like that, which Bernie Sanders was a a big proponent of. Now, I don't know if that friend holds any of those same political stances. Like he switched pretty hard.
Okay.
Like if Bernie
So,
Sanders ran again, I don't think he would vote for him. But I'm not 100% sure about that.
okay. So what made him switch?
It was truly just the thing that started it, the ball rolling was the convention. The way that they just kind of revealed their hand, their corruption, their game setting, their string pulling. He was just like, wait a second, this is the party that I've been aligned with for however many years. Like I can't approve of it anymore. I'm sure it would be something like a Republican during the Nixon administration or any other president that was or candidate that was revealed to be corrupt.
Okay.
It just made people swing the pendulum pretty far the other way.
Okay. I wasn't that aware of like that in terms of people who were fans of fans of Bernie rather going to Trump for that reason. But that makes sense. I mean, that's understandable. And
So what happened was that just made them put a magnifying glass on what they believed, and, um, and in many cases they found out that they were being lied to, or the facts weren't being represented correctly, or the things that were being proposed weren't actually good. Just I wouldn't say that they flipped on every issue. I don't think that would be true. I would say probably only maybe 30%, but that was enough to flip their vote to Trump and to lead them down more conservative, or I don't even like conservative, I would say liberal, like a more liberal pathway instead of toward more authoritarian practices.
okay. So um so in terms of people who voted for Obama who decided to vote for Trump, what do you think about the factors that contributed to that?
What was that question again?
The What do you think about the factors that contributed to people who voted for Obama voting for Trump?
Mm, Probably just the same thing that after it was revealed that I don't think Obama was a bad president necessarily. I don't think any of the people that I know that voted for him and then switched their vote would say that. They would still probably say he's a good president, and or at least tolerable, not the
Right.
worst. So yeah, I mean, they just a few case examples that I remember talking to them about were like the wage gap, how Obama promoted the wage gap, how the Democrats usually promote the wage gap. They're like, wait a second, it's not so obvious that there's this huge disparity. There is obviously some, probably more than people think, but it wasn't like a polarizing issue. It should have been something we could both sides could come together and talk about and come up with a solution that both were willing to compromise on. And instead, it's like a all or nothing. You have to think the way we do or not. And if
Yeah.
you don't, then you're the bad guy. You're the Nazi. You're the racist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
very apparent. Like the people, I was just watching Christina Hoff Sommers today. She gets called a Nazi all the time now. It's like,
Yeah.
how long is it going to be before Biden and Obama are Nazis? It's just spiraling. I just don't get it.
Oh, Biden's already been called a racist for that like
Right?
that busing thing, right?
For what?
For that busing thing. I think that
I think
Kamala
it was.
Harris was accusing him of in the
Oh, in the
70s or
past,
something.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
think the thing that got him was he said, what was it? Poor kids can be as smart as white kids or something.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, with the wage gap thing too, you're right. That is really polarizing too. It's like people people say there's like a strict, I think it's something like women earn 70 cents on the dollar in comparison to men, regardless of all circumstances, like across the board, or it's that there is no wage gap. And it's sort of more complicated than that. Like you were saying, it seems like I'm certainly no expert, but it seems like there is one, but it's due to a lot of complex and interconnected factors
Oh yeah, it's
like that.
intensely complex.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
even I don't know, like Jordan Peterson, he talks about it being a personality thing. What do you say? Assertiveness versus somebody that can negotiate for pay. It's like a personality thing, but at the same time, it's probably a lot deeper than that. Like there's like if a woman goes into the trucking industry, it's not really set up for a female. Maybe that's too biologically essentialist, but that would discourage women from going in to trucking,
Yeah,
whether or
yeah.
not they wanted to. It's so there's obviously some doors that aren't open wide enough. It's gonna
Hmm.
take some time.
Yeah. Yeah, like another example of that is I where I live there's a huge oil industry, so a lot of people work on site for the different oil companies, and I mean a lot of women work in there too, but much less so than men. And it is more like, based on what I've heard, I've never actually worked in that environment, but based on what I've heard, it is like it's it's harder for women to make it because there's like this it's sort of like this cultural of male camaraderie and stuff like that,
Right.
which isn't that welcoming to women, like you were talking about in terms of trucking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I also don't think it's that simple either. Like it's just there might be a small fraction of women that want to go in those fields, and it's like, do we sacrifice the efficiency and productivity of this entire job market to make it more accessible and friendlier toward a few women? Like maybe if tons of women wanted to go into it, but I just don't see the a huge drive. But that maybe that's the substructure of our society is where women wouldn't. Yeah, I don't think so. It could be, but I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah,
It could be
that's
that
good.
women all want to go into petroleum engineering, but I just don't. I think maybe there's a small number of women that would like to do it, but
Yeah, yeah, I
most
think you're
women
right.
don't.
And I think like some of that is due to what people say about how generally speaking men and women are drawn to different types of careers, although people exaggerate that sometimes too. But and I'm sure that some of that is due to cultural pressures, so it's not necessarily natural. But the regardless of the circumstances, which as we're talking about are really complex, um, like you said, it still seems to be a small minority of women who are interested in jobs like that. So if we're going to change policies to accommodate for people who are going to make up a small minority of the industry, that doesn't seem that pragmatic, like you were saying.
And it doesn't seem very equitable.
Yeah,
And I don't
yeah.
see the same push in the opposite direction. Like I know a few male nurses, a few male like STNAs, they have a really hard time. Like
Oh yeah,
anything that is viewed as aggressive, like even if they're defending themselves when a patient's being violent, like if it's easy for a man to accidentally go too far, whereas it's not necessarily easy for a female to go too far in defending themselves. If that
yeah,
makes sense. And that's a
yeah,
training problem, really, but it's also just a natural strength problem. You grab somebody's hand when you're a 6'7" dude, you can easily hurt them if you're trying to keep them from hitting you or something.
yeah,
Whereas if
yeah,
you're
definitely.
five foot
Like,
two and 100 pounds, you're probably not gonna hurt them
yeah,
unless
yeah,
you know what
that's
you're doing.
true.
But
Yeah, that's definitely true. like in our society, because like if you're, well, I mean, for one thing, like you were saying, if you're a male if you're a male nurse, you'll probably get mercilessly made fun of sometimes. And then like you say, like you said, if you're trying to restrain a patient to due to like bad circumstances or something like that, it could be easier to accidentally hurt someone, or someone could get upset with you more easily if you just naturally have more strength, and they might be more critical of you for that, so you have to be like more careful. Whereas if you're, like you said, if you're like 5'2" and 100 pounds, then it's much more difficult to get carried away with that sort of thing, and there's much less judgment for if you do accidentally get carried away or something like that, especially like if in the if you're like that 6'7" guy, and
Or
you're
girl.
restraining a bit, yeah, or girl, yeah, if you're that 6'7" person and you're restraining a person, it could be like it could, well, like you said, it could easily lead to much more easily lead to unintended consequences than if you're 5'2" and 100 pounds or something like that.
And it's even just an intimidation factor too, because in the one case, he's probably 6'4", STNA, working in a nursing home, and one of the dementia patients, female, was uh, being very friendly, as they often do, little touchy, At my wife's grandmother and my grandfather both had dementia, and they almost become like pubescent teenagers. It's in some way they're just very aroused a lot, if that's possible. For anyway, she was just she was sexually assaulting them. Is what was happening.
Oh
Even
wow.
though even though she had dementia, that's what she was doing. She was trying to grab places and seduce him, and the one day he just got tired of it, and I don't even think he did anything violent. He just grabbed her hand and pushed it away, but it was enough speed and with his size that it scared her, and just the fact that she was scared was enough to get him fired. Like he lost his job.
Oh wow. Oh, that's awful.
So I don't. Again, I wasn't there. I wasn't watching it, but I know the guy for one thing, and I don't think he would abuse an old lady.
Right.
I just see him getting frustrated and just like pushing her hand away quickly, or just but it would have surprised her and shocked her and hurt her feelings, and I don't know if that would have happened in the same way if it was a female,
Yeah, I mean,
unless, yeah, I don't know, but it just seemed awfully cut and dry. Like, no, sorry, lost your job.
yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Like if you're less like you're much less like, well, I guess those circumstances are probably much less likely to happen if the situation were reversed, right? Like if it were some old lady and this like big guy was all handsy with her or something like that, right?
Or in case of my grandfather, if it was him and a young STNA, you know, like I just think it would have been viewed differently, particularly based on size alone.
Yeah,
But it's just more likely to happen that way with a dude
yeah,
for
definitely.
whatever reason. I
Yeah.
don't even remember what we were talking about. Wage gap.
Yeah, that's where we started. Yeah.
So it's just I don't think it can be argued that there's disparities in between the genders, however you view genders. There's obviously people are born differently. That's apparent. I would say you can't deny that without denying reality. Um, and there's just more dudes that are big,
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
just like lions, just like dogs, just like horses, just like bison. It's bear. This goes on. Humans aren't any different. Gorillas, it's less pronounced, and we're socialized a lot, but some of that's
Yeah,
still some of that's still in our monkey brains.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Um, So yeah, do you want to talk about well, this idea that that I guess like Trump supposedly gets support from like the alt right and like like racists and people like that. Like to me, to me it seems like for one like mainly that's probably the vast minority of his supporters, mainly because that represents a tiny minority of people in general. Like there are like something like I don't know, like 10,000 Nazis or something like that in I think in the United States. So
Hopefully
like
less.
yeah, yeah. So, like, for one thing, even if you just look at that, it's not even possible really for anything more than a tiny minority of Trump's supporters to be like that. Would I mean, what do you think about that?
I've never met anybody that's you could characterize as alt right or race. I mean, I know a lot of white people, and I know some that are racist, but the way that they're racist is kind of strange. Like they're not Nazi racist.
Yeah, yeah. The I would
More
say
like American racist, which really means like the most racist guy that I know, like that I knew that he was obviously a little bit racist because he would talk to me about that stuff and he would make comments about Obama or you know Chinese people or whatever. Um, his pastor's Brazilian, so he's not white. He's very brown. And when his pastor became a U.S. citizen, this guy was the first person. He looked like he was gonna cry. He was just so proud that somebody became an American.
oh wow.
That's I think really that's he wasn't very high IQ, but I think that really characterizes a lot of what we view as racism. It's more chauvinism or um, it's like when you're I hear this people say this all the time when they're driving down the road and they get caught up in road rage. The first thing that comes to their mind is not to accurately describe the person that just you know uh, cut them off.
Yeah,
They call them something very insulting, and if it's somebody who's mildly prone to racism, they might call them something racist. It's not necessarily that they're racist to the core; it's that they just want to insult somebody and they know that's an insult.
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
in the case of that guy, like I just feel like that really characterizes the people I know that most of the people who want to point out racism would point to. It's not necessarily that they really hate black people or they hate Chinese people. It's that they want to have something in common with people and
Yeah,
they don't see it there.
yeah, yeah.
If
That
that person became an American and came over and was like, "Hey, I like the Mets too, and I love watching the New York Jets on TV," they'd probably get along as long as they have some commonality.
yeah, yeah. I would say so. Like mm, like the few people who I've known and or interacted with who I would say are racist, they're like the way it comes out with them, I've noticed, is if they're like if they're driving down the road and they see a group of brown people, they'll like refer to all of them as Pakis or something, as if all brown people come from Pakistan, but then they'll still like work with them at the same job or something like that, or um, or like this one of my friends' moms is pretty racist, and she'll say things like Muslims are trying to take over the world or black people are taking our jobs, but then she'll still work with them, and she's not like literally going around saying white people are the best, we need to engineer a white supremacist society and segregate black people or anything like that.
Yeah, I get what people are saying though. I mean, those are the if you have a curve of racism, those people are probably pretty far along it just because they perpetuate like they're part of the problem.
For sure,
Even
for sure.
even though they're not really Nazi racist, they're not trying to kill people that aren't the same as them.
Yeah, yeah,
They still push push that narrative
yeah,
where they're upset, whenever they're not totally in control.
yeah. It's like blaming problems that are a lot more complex on people who are really not responsible for those problems because you just don't think about it enough or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's not
Yeah.
terribly intelligent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Most people aren't terribly intelligent.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, like, so, hmm. Oh, sorry, that's my phone. So I don't know. Let's,
So is Trump one of those people? I guess would be a good question.
yeah, yeah. Do you
Be one
want
of
to talk about?
part of the problem.
Sure.
Um, I don't think he's a Nazi. That should be obvious. I
Yeah, I
think
don't think he is either. I also don't think he's literally mentally retarded. I've heard both
no,
of those claims from
I
people.
doubt that too.
Yeah.
I think he's an opportunist. If black people are at his rallies, he loves black people. It's like he doesn't really care. He might say some things that are seen on that curve of supporting the racist narrative, but it's could easily go the other way. I mean, I forget what that guy's name is. He's a black guy that goes to the Ku Klux Klan rallies and tries
Oh,
to talk.
Daryl Davis.
Yeah, like he's somebody that's trying to pull the narrative back, like and fix the problem. If Trump is getting white people and black people together at his rallies, is he fixing the problem or making it worse? It seems to me that he's making it better because conservatives, which are historically seen as more racist, now they want black people and Mexicans and whatever on their side because it makes them look better. They're also their opportunism trumps their no pun intended trumps their racism in whatever form it is.
Yeah, well put.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if you could argue that he's making it worse. I think the people that are making it worse are the people that want to separate. It's like no, black people shouldn't go to Trump rallies. It's like no, go, do it.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get beat up. Nobody gets. No, I've never seen a black person get beat up at a Trump rally. They love them. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know. I think there's a few. I forget what the ladies are. They have a podcast. It's like Salt and Pepper. It's two black ladies, but they're big Trump supporters.
The
And
like the ones who were like rappers and or
no,
R&B
these are older.
people in the
They look
90s.
like old church ladies,
Oh, okay.
but they're
Okay.
real popular. They're kind of like yeah, they're just very popular. Everybody loves them. If if those black women make people who are on that curve toward racism love black people more and want them on their side, then that's to me that's pulling racism back, not making it worse.
Yeah.
So you
You
could
see you see that well like another few who I like to follow are Hotep Jesus and his Uncle Hotep, who's his. I think I'm not sure if he's his actually his uncle, but they have a YouTube channel, and I think they're Trump supporters, and I like watching them because they're funny and they make a lot of jokes.
what
And
was that
then
sheriff dude that Trump is always rubbing shoulders with? West?
Sheriff Dude, I don't know.
Let's see if I can find it. I think it's that black sheriff guy from like Idaho or something.
Oh, okay. And then also, of course, there are people like Candace Owens and Kanye West who are Trump supporters too, and
Yeah,
they're
Candace Owens just interviewed this guy recently. That's good.
oh, she did. Okay.
But yeah, Kanye West. I mean, it's kind of weird the effect Trump has had on conservatism because where it used to be like the party of white evangelical Christians. Now it's being infiltrated by all these black people and all these gay people and all these Mexicans, and they seem to love it. So why not? If you want to defeat racism and homophobia, you want to mix those people as much as possible. And the best
Yeah,
way to do that is give them causes and common pursuits. And
yeah,
that's really what I mean. That's why I love this country so much, because I really think that was the purpose of it, a melting pot, right? We weren't supposed to segregate. We weren't supposed to uh, be scared of sharing our cultures or letting other people take pieces of our culture. We were supposed to share it and just blend, and that's what gave us such a. I think we're still the most diverse Western or major power in the world.
okay.
I think it's
Yeah,
like
it's
69% white and then 31%
yeah,
other
it's
races. Whereas
similar
like
here.
UK is, yeah, Canada's probably pretty similar, but I think the United
Yeah,
States
that's what I
is
was gonna
beat.
say. Yeah, I mean, even though even though Trump has definitely done things that I'm not a fan of, he has done some things that I think are good, and like a few of those are releasing nonviolent drug offenders a few times, and like one of those things in relation to what you were saying about like gay people and stuff like that. I remember him. I don't know if anything actually came of it, but I think relatively recently he was saying that he was trying to put pressure on some Middle Eastern countries to remove the laws that make it illegal to be gay or something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's not 100% positive, but as far as racism goes, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that's happening that is his fault.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't say he's a racist or part of the problem. I think it's probably the opposite if you look at the numbers. Depends on
Yeah.
what you think the cure for racism is, really. Do you think the cure for racism is giving each race its own little safe space, or do you think the cure is to have as many interracial marriages as possible? I mean, which one solves it quicker?
I think probably the second one.
Yeah, it's like we're all one race. Why don't we all mix? Then there would be no racism.
Yeah.
Seems like a
Yeah,
good
for
idea.
sure. Yeah, I would say so.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't think it's important to anyone except the people who capitalize on the division.
Hmm.
They want a voting block of black people. They want a voting block of Mexicans. They want a voting block of, it's easy to divide people up like that, and that's the way they do it.
Yeah.
It's
I
harder
think
to.
one thing that I noticed, one huge thing that I notice all the time about Trump is that it's almost like he's like I don't think he's like a super genius playing 10-dimensional chess like some people think he is, but I think he like pretty much every fucking day he trolls the media, and then by doing that he controls the narrative and they fall into his trap of obsessing over some like offensive shit he said to someone, and then they don't talk about his policy decisions at all, which some of the, like I think some of them are good, but some of them are like he's continuing regime change wars and stuff just like every other president, but they don't talk about that. Instead they talk about him saying some mean shit to people on Twitter or something like that.
Hmm. He's probably just playing regular chess.
Yeah.
Most people don't play chess very well, so if he can play chess at all, then he's doing all right.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
probably.
but yeah, I think he's like I don't really want to go down the road, but I don't think presidents are really pulling the strings. And of the presidents that we've had in the context of regime changes, he's probably one of the better ones. Like I was kind of shocked when he pulled back on the Iran thing. It's like,
Yeah, I
oh,
would
they only
too.
blew up a drone. We're not going to go kill them. Let's hold off
Yeah,
on that. Like how many? Like I don't know. Maybe it was just a photo op. Like I said, I think his main characteristic is an opportunist.
yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's some of why and this is the same as some other presidents too. said some anti-war stuff, but then hasn't actually done
Well,
like
again,
followed through on some of
I
that.
think this is why
And
President's goes gray.
yeah,
If you get elected to president, that first briefing, they're probably just like, "All right, we have snipers trained on your family right now. What are you gonna do? You're gonna do what we say."
yeah, yeah, definitely.
At least most of the time, we'll let you have a little bit of play, but
Yeah,
I really
yeah,
don't think that I don't think there's a lot that they can do just from the fact that foreign policy and our disputes with other nations kind of tie their hands. Like you can't, like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna let China take over the world? No. Are you gonna let Russia take over the world? No. Well, then there's a lot of dirty shit that you're gonna have to do to keep that from happening.
and even though Trump's opportunism is bad sometimes, it can result in good things sometimes too. Like the thing with him meeting with Kim Jong Un, like perhaps him like every once in a while just talking to him is preventing escalations from that. And like, I mean, people have said this from the start of his presidency, but perhaps he could even potentially bring peace to North Korea. And even if he's continuing all of these like unnecessary wars in the Middle East, if he ends even one of them, that's pretty fucking huge progress for any president recently.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. All
They need
right.
to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, um, do you want to talk more about how like Hillary Clinton was like arguably some aspects of her were worse than Trump, at least in terms of like her record of the decisions that she's made.
Uh, Again, I would say she's an opportunist almost as much as Trump is. You can tell that just by how much she flips on, like 1 year she's anti-gay, the next year she's not. It's just a real convenient way to stay with the mainstream. And I don't think she was honest about anything really. I think the main purpose of, I don't know if I would say Clinton, but I think maybe Clinton was even under her thumb a little bit. Um, it was to create a system of political cronyism where she could buy and sell favors to promote, to gain power and to promote her grand plan, whatever that was. It seemed to be something along the veins of a Saul Alinsky takeover of culture, but I could be wrong about that.
Is he that guy who wrote Rules
Rules
for
for Radicals.
Radicals?
Yep.
Oh, okay,
Scary dude.
right. Yeah, I mean, like one interesting thing about the 2016 election that well, that I and plenty of other people were noticing well, was that one way that people were promoting Hillary Clinton was because she's a woman, and like I and plenty of other people were making the point, but couldn't it be a good woman instead of like a woman who could actually seems like she could actually make positive choices and stuff instead of one who like seems to seems to love war and liked it when Saddam Hussein got raped to death and, has made some other questionable decisions, let's say.
Mm-hmm. It'd be great to have a woman president. I was really
I
kind of hoping that.
personally, I personally am a huge fan of Tulsi Gabbard, although it seems
I think
unlikely that
she's a
she'll get
good
elected.
American. Like I've watched quite a bit of her stuff, and I think she cares about the country. Whether like I don't agree with a lot of her stuff, but I think she is different than most of the other Democratic candidates in that she has a favorable view of the nation as a whole instead of a negative one.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Enough to fight for it, it's a big deal.
Yeah, and yeah,
You
I
think
mean,
she'll make it?
sorry,
You think she'll make it?
I don't know. I mean, I'm I'm kind of doubtful. I really honestly hope that she will, but obviously she's not in the next debates that are happening soon because the DNC only accepts certain polls, and even though she's gotten more than the required minimum of donors and approval rating and stuff like that. She's not in the next ones, but apparently she can get in the next debates after or the next debate after this one. So hopefully she can do that. And I mean, it seems like I don't know. It seems to me like even if she doesn't succeed, maybe she will actually have somewhat of an impact on the culture, kind of like how Bernie Sanders did in 2016. I don't know. What do you think about all that?
I see a lot of conservatives that like her.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
Again, I don't know if they would agree with her stances, but they seem to approve, and I guess that's kind of goes back to what I was talking about before about that commonality. They're like, all right, we disagree, but at least you love the country, like I do. That's something. Whereas Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, it's kind of a negative. Like we need to change it radically. It's not good and never was.
yeah,
It's kind of a doesn't really appeal to people. I don't think in the long run.
yeah. I was watching one of her recent interviews where she was saying that that's sort of like a thing about her. Like she doesn't like to put herself into any specific box. I think she said she described herself as something like uh, a a democratic libertarian conservative or something like that. Like she has beliefs from all of those different categories that people would put her into. And she was talking about how she thinks it's strange that it's seen as a conservative thing for her to be talking about how she loves her country and stuff like that, and how that
Racist.
used to be a liberal thing too.
She's a racist.
Yeah.
That's really the level we're at right now.
Yep. Or she's buddies with Assad and she loves
Mhm.
dictators.
She loves what?
She loves dictators.
Oh.
And Putin's her buddy too, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's got all the Russian trolls on her side.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think about some of the other Democratic candidates right now?
I really haven't been paying attention. I've had a busy couple years here, and um, I'm kind of dismissive. Like if I feel like people are going down a certain path, I just don't really pay attention to them, and that's pretty much all of the candidates for the Democratic nomination.
Okay.
I think there were a few that had some glimmers of hope that I just kind of caught whiffs of, but they were cut off so fast that I mean, like even amongst themselves in the debates, you have like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders accusing them of being basically Republican plants for talking about certain things. And it's like, what's going on there?
Like what? I didn't see that.
Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren both used the phrase that their fellow debaters were using Republican talking points, either their partners in the debate or the moderator for
Hmm.
questions. They're like, no, why are we talking about that? That's a Republican talking point. We shouldn't talk about that. It's like,
What was it? Like
even if it is a Republican talking point, now's your chance to refute it. Like, just take it down if you want.
what was it? Like
There's another guy that was saying that he was arguing with Bernie Sanders about healthcare, and he said something about it's like, why can't we make it more of a choice? Like, you can have Medicare, or you can keep your doctor if you want. And Bernie Sanders was like, that's a Republican talking point. I just didn't. So I just he immediately was dropped out of the next debate, and
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think he had any traction in the polls anyway. He had enough to get in the debate, but it was like 1% or something. Whereas
Oh, okay.
Warren, like I wouldn't be surprised if Warren and Sanders end up on the same ticket.
Yeah, I've
Like
heard
horses.
theories about that too. I don't know. I mean, from what I've heard, it seems like um, Biden, Warren, and Sanders are the leaders. So
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know
They're all
how it's
pretty
gonna
close
turn out.
too. I think Biden has like 20%, and Warren and Sanders both have 17. So if Warren and Sanders decide on who's going to be vice president, then they could obviously take the nomination pretty easily with their combined support.
Yeah, that might work. Yeah,
That would be the strategic thing to do if you're gonna defeat Trump. Biden doesn't have a chance by himself. Like he's a
yeah.
joke.
His approval rating seems to have been dropping since the start.
Yeah, and I think the people that are holding on to him are if he drops out, I would bet probably half of them vote for Trump or not at all. That's I think they just think he's kind of the last hope for their Democratic support. He's kind
Yeah.
of an old school Democrat. He's old. He likes to touch people, and like a lot of people apparently resonate with that.
Yeah.
They don't resonate with. I don't think they would resonate with Warren or Sanders.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
They just see Biden as like their union boss, basically.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, he's like pretty much the status quo, and they're uh and Warren and Sanders are especially Sanders is more of a populist, I would say.
He just has a lot of radical ideas too that I don't think most people support
Yeah.
as a whole. Like I think they probably like the idea, but he just goes too far. Like like in his condemnation of the 1%, it's like the 1% is the only reason we have anything nice. And I think most people know that. So while they would like to have some of the money of the 1%, they're not gonna drive them away because they know that we need Jeff Bezos. We need these are the people that give us our jobs. These are the people that invent and pay for the production of our phones. And they're like, all right, maybe you have a little bit too much. Like Jeff Bezos has a lot of money, and he could probably finance our healthcare by himself. Not really, but he could definitely afford to help out a little more.
Yeah.
But I don't think people want him to leave. They don't want him to close up shop.
Yeah, I don't hear any about anyone like wanting to shut down Amazon. Everyone loves Amazon, like in terms of using it.
I just ordered something today and I got it today.
Yeah,
How
same
awesome is that?
day. Wow. Yeah. And like well, I was talking yesterday about how there there are like, to be fair, there are some genius myths about people like Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs, as if they did everything themselves, but they obviously, like, with if you look at Steve Jobs, for example, then all of the things had already been invented that were going into the iPhone, and he was the one who made the decisions,
Yeah,
but
it's more
there's
like a
still,
leadership.
yeah, that's what I was just
That's
gonna
really
say.
the
It's
hard
like
part.
there,
Like I feel like I have good ideas, but to go out and convince people to invest money in me is really, really difficult. So if you have that talent, then you're going to be the head of Microsoft. You're going to be the head of Apple. You're going to be Jeff Bezos. It's almost the salesman aspect.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. They're like the person who makes the decisions and leads the people, like directs what's going to be done. And then, like you were saying,
They're
the
assholes.
yeah. Yeah, 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 for sure. And but like it seems like they're like even assholes serve a purpose in a way, right? And
Think of a couple things assholes do pretty well.
yeah. and, and like you were saying, like these massive companies like Amazon, they do provide a lot of jobs to people too, and they create and they make products that so many people buy too. Like I like most people probably buy their books off of Amazon rather than like in an actual store now, I would bet, for one thing.
And I think most people don't realize about Amazon is that like everything they're selling on there, probably 90% of it is all what you would call mom and pop shops, except
Is
for
it?
21st century. Yeah, they're all private sellers that just use Amazon as like a third party service, like a credit card company at a convenience store.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Amazon just hosts the shops and does the shipping and product fulfillment stuff like that. So,
And
trying to
they
think of
take
an
a cut.
example. Like um, what did I just buy? I bought some hard drive enclosures. They're not they're hosted and shipped by Amazon, but and Amazon takes their cut, but it's actually another seller that lists the item
Oh,
and,
okay.
and produces it.
Oh, okay.
It's
I didn't know that.
just like a big marketplace basically.
Oh, okay.
It's sort
I
of like
mean,
eBay, except more centralized.
oh, okay.
So on
I mean,
eBay, if you sell something, you ship it. On
yeah, I
Amazon,
guess
if you sell
there
something,
isn't any Amazon don't make any actual products, right? Like there's
they
not
make
like
quite a few, and they're increasing the number they
oh,
make.
are they?
What they
Well,
do is they'll take the popular ones. Like if you wanna buy AA batteries, they have all the regular brands on there, but now they have the Amazon Basics brand.
oh, okay.
Amazon doesn't make them, but they have bought the company that does make them, and they put their name on it now. So they might not be the best batteries. I buy them sometimes, but and obviously they're going to be a little biased in which batteries they promote and advertise on their site. But you can still buy. You search for AA batteries, you still see Energizer, even though you see Amazon Basics first most of the time.
Oh, okay.
So they do
Hmm.
have their own products. They don't usually make them. They don't usually invent them. Like they'll buy a seller that does a good job producing and marketing their product and slap their name on it. Sort of like Trump does. Like most of
Yeah.
the time his hotels aren't his hotels. It's more like a label type deal.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that, but that doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
lot like eBay. It's really basically eBay, except for like what eBay was for the individual, Amazon is for the store.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
And like one aspect of that I was just thinking of too is self-publishing. Like anyone can self-publish a book on Amazon now, which I'm thinking of doing in the future. And like that's one advantage to something like that. Like it used to be, you used to have to find a traditional publisher, which is notoriously difficult to do. And then if you can't find one, then you're kind of fucked otherwise. But now there are so many like Amazon obviously isn't the only way, but there are many different ways that you can self-publish a book nowadays.
Yeah, it's an incredible company. It's impressive. I don't know if I love their service, but I don't know if I approve of their existence. 100%.
Yeah, I would say that I
But
have a
I
similar
mean, if
perspective.
you look at any major company is going to have its shady underpinnings. But are they a net benefit? Probably. Amazon's. I mean, you can buy stuff on Amazon that you not only you can't buy anywhere else, but it's usually a lower price than a normal department store. So, and you get it the same day for free
Yeah,
if you have a Prime membership. So
yeah,
is that good for people? I don't know. It's consumerism. Maybe that's bad, but people get what they want faster.
yeah. And like obviously if you have Prime, you can also watch the Amazon Prime series that are coming out now, which are getting more and more popular. Like two of the I think Amazon is making two fantasy shows that I'm looking forward to. They're making a Lord of the Rings show, and they're also making a Wheel of Time show, which is an adaptation of the epic fantasy
Brandon
novels that I've
Sanderson.
read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Um. So back to the topic. Is there any other questions you wanted to ask about that? I mean,
Um.
I obviously I don't love Trump. If I had a like my ideal candidate would be somewhere between John F. Kennedy and Teddy Roosevelt, mixed maybe with a little Ronald Reagan. Like I don't really have a political side that I like. There's one that I choose a lot more than the other, but it's more of a pragmatic decision. Most people, I don't think, there's probably only 20% of people that think that way. The other 20% have their, or the other 80% have their allegiances that are parental or social from the church, or you know what I mean. Like whereas I look at my allegiance is basically just the Constitution. Like I just really enjoy our founding documents and the people that fought for them, whether they were Republican or Democrat. So
Yeah, that's fair.
Tulsi Gabbard's would be a great president, I think,
I think so too.
for
Yeah.
America. She might not do everything I want, but she would probably be a great president for America.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
also think Trump is a great president for America. So it's complicated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a I think it's good that I think you're the way that you evaluate like politicians and political decisions. I think that's um, to me that's a much it's a much better way to evaluate these things rather than just be all tribal about it. Like I'm a Democratic, I'm on or I'm a Democrat rather. I'm on the Democratic team, or I'm a conservative. I'm the on the conservative team, or anything in between. And but like if you evaluate decisions on like a case by case basis, then it's it's pretty clear that one particular political ideology is never always the solution to a particular problem.
Right. And the people who think that way, I probably dislike more than anyone. Like, I just don't. I can't. It's not that I hate them, but I can't stand that thought process. That, for instance, there were a lot of people that were never Trumpers. They're like, all right, I would support these principles, and I would love to have a president that supports them, but I can't stand Trump, so I'm not going to vote for him.
Yeah,
That kind of moral absolutism, like where you're willing to sacrifice your principles as a whole for some moral dispute with the people that promote your principles, it's gross. So I probably have more dislike for people who think that way than for somebody that wants to see Karl Marx elected as president.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, I personally like I'm not a fan of Trump, but and I would say like in my opinion, I think he's done more bad things than good things, but I also like I like to make a habit of um, not just like pointing it out when he does things that I don't like, but also pointing it out when he does things that I do like how yesterday I heard that he fired John Bolton, which in my opinion is a good thing because he's a neoconservative warmonger who sort of played a part in engineering all these wars in the Middle East, which seem largely unnecessary to me. So that's, and then like I mentioned a few things earlier, um, like Trump releasing nonviolent drug offenders a few times, for example, which are like some good things that he does.
Hmm. Like I said, I can admit that Obama was probably as a whole a good president. I think he was probably the last Democrat nominee that I could say that about that had any serious chance of getting the nomination at least.
Right.
I don't think he was evil. I don't think he was stupid.
Yeah.
I didn't hate him. I didn't vote for him, but I didn't hate him. You know, it's like I could see his reasoning. You know, he made good cases. He didn't just jump into things with both feet most of the time, which is above average for presidents.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I mean, like I would say my opinion about Obama is probably similar to yours. Like I think he was pretty good overall, but then he did some bad things too, which, well, like I said, like I think that describes pretty much every president. And like I wouldn't go around saying I love Obama and I approve of everything he's done, but I wouldn't say that he's terrible or anything like that either. Like he definitely did some good things in my opinion. He definitely did some terrible things too.
As we all do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The that's actually really good, a really good point, because um, we forget sometimes, I think, that politicians are people. And I guess like even I definitely have this strong bias sometimes where I just consider I don't well I see politicians in general as opportunists the way you describe them. And I mean I've I've never met any of these people personally, so that's I just sort of assume that's reality. I don't know how realistic it is.
Yeah, I don't. I'm very cynical about politics, but pragmatic is the way to go. I think.
Yeah.
If it's probably not the presidents or the senators that are making the decisions. Like they operate within uh, constraints of the people that they represent for one, but the constraints of what's maybe good for the country, what's good for the world. You know, like they're operating under all these. I don't know if you watched the Dan Crenshaw Joe Rogan interview.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so that was kind of a there were a lot of people that gave Dan Crenshaw some heat over something, and that's kind of the answer he gave. Is like it's a lot more complex than you think. You can't just ban this or unban that. It's a river with currents. You know, you put a dam at one spot, you're gonna disrupt everything down the down the line. And if you do that, is it worth it? Good example is President Lincoln and the Civil War in UK and in France and probably Portugal. I can't remember all the countries. They had a much smoother transition for their abolitionist movements. They didn't have a civil war for the most part. I think England had like a small uprising on some colonized islands. Some slave owners rebelled, or it's very small though. But Abraham Lincoln was intent on. I My personal opinion is that he was intent on ending slavery, even if that's not what he said. in public speeches, and he wanted to end it as quickly as possible. And he thought that the Civil War was going to be quick, and it turned
Yeah.
out that it wasn't.
No.
And that, but an example of what the UK did is they basically bought the slaves back from the owners, and I think they let the slave owners keep certain types of slaves for 10 years.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
And so they just kind of phased it out. Now, to me, those two actions are disgusting. Like, I dislike slavery enough that I would be willing to fight a civil war over it. But is that good to have 500,000 people die because you can't wait 10 years to free the slaves?
Yeah, that's a good question. That reminds me of
It's a hard question.
Thaddeus Russell brings up a similar point about that too. That
It's a hard question. Like, I don't, if
yeah,
I were the president, would I fight a war to end slavery, or would I negotiate with terrorists? It's like it's hard to say,
it
especially
is.
especially when there's that much blood. It's a lot
Yeah,
of blood on both sides of the decision. It's like if you keep slavery alive for another 10 years, but you end it peacefully without possibly without the subsequent 100 years of intense racism. If you could have ended slavery without a war, racism in the United States would probably be a lot less than it is now. You wouldn't have people flying Confederate flags everywhere, for one thing.
that's interesting. I've never
So
thought
all
about that.
all the people that
Mm.
suffered under that increased level of hatred because of the war, like the people in the South did not like that the black people were freed, but they liked even less that they were freed because they lost the war.
Right,
It's like we rebelled and we lost, and here you guys are sticking it in our faces with your freedom. Whereas if you bought them back slowly over the course of 10 years, slaves would be abused, maybe killed, but is that better than 600,000 people dying? Who knows how many people died after that because of racism? I don't know.
yeah,
I'm sure it wasn't bloodless. I know it wasn't bloodless. Just the amount of people that were lynched. Like, I don't think the UK had any lynchings after they freed their slaves. So
yeah. That's an interesting point. Yeah,
it's one of those things you can, like. I think Abraham Lincoln was a good president. And he had good intentions, and he won't, he just didn't realize that the South was going to fight that hard to keep slaves. And I forget how badly they were outnumbered in that first battle. Like, the Union troops they had way more troops, but the South just slaughtered them because they didn't bother training them. They're like, this is gonna be quick. They'll surrender.
right.
Didn't work out
Yeah,
that way.
no, no, definitely. And yeah, like back the Civil War, during the Civil War, they were using like muskets and shit like that too. Those were terrible weapons to be using. That like
I
the
think the
battle
reason they say that the battles are so bloody is because they had just invented rifling and the barrels, so that the bullets went farther and straighter and faster. But they were still using the battle tactics of the previous military technology. So you line up and shoot at each other with unrifled barrels. Half the bullets don't even go anywhere near what they were aiming for.
exactly.
But you have
Yeah,
you have people lined up with rifled barrels. You just decimate each other.
yeah,
It's ridiculous. I don't
yeah,
think,
exactly.
but that's another example of an effect having unforeseen consequences. It's really complicated when you make big changes. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's why I understand why people want to exercise caution when considering huge changes, like a lot of the big changes that people talk about in the political sphere, for example.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, like for like free healthcare and free college for everyone, and like totally getting rid of fossil fuels, like you can do it by snapping your fingers or something like that. Like I think that in the long term, those those sorts of ideas are probably good, but maybe but doing it in a more gradual way that will is more likely to actually work in the long term makes a lot more sense than just going to these like solutions that seem like you can just snap your fingers and make them happen magically, are to succeed, because they seem much less likely to be able to succeed.
Yeah. Uh, Paper straws is a good example.
Yeah, yeah.
Another one is me and my wife were talking about it. I think we were talking about paper for some reason and recycling. She said something about if hemp would be a better replacement for our current, um, the amount of trees that we use to make paper. And I brought up the point that it's like, well, if you incentivize people by making trees valuable, you're going to have more trees. And we have, I forget how, I think we've tripled our forest size in the last 50 years, 70 years, or something like that, mainly due to the fact that paper is valuable,
Oh, I
more
didn't know that.
valuable, so that these companies will go out of their way to plant more trees. Otherwise, they don't make money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that
Whereas,
makes
whereas
sense.
if you switch to
Yeah.
hemp, like, what is if you like 100% switch to hemp or 50%? Do you take into account the size difference in the plant and the byproducts? Like a tree doesn't just make paper; it makes wood and all sorts of other things that we use it for. Does hemp have the same ability to build a house as it does to make a sheet of paper or a bag?
I think it does actually.
You might
I think
save the environment in one tiny area, but hemp plants don't grow as tall as trees do. So I would assume you'd have to have a lot more surface area to plant the hemp. Is that feasible? If you have to have a forest of hemp that's 10 times the size of a pine forest to get the same amount of product, seems like that would be worse for the environment, especially like in the Amazon. They have to clear 10 times the amount of land. I don't know how tall a hemp plant grows, but I know it's not very tall. Not a pine
yeah.
tree. It's not a pine tree for sure. Anyways, just stuff like that it sounds good on the surface. Like a paper straw sounds like a great idea if you're trying to get rid of plastic, but that might be all it does. Maybe it makes the environment way worse in every other way, except for the fact that there's less plastic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Like it's well, like I was saying, it's more difficult to basically construct these sorts of changes in a sustainable and long-term way, because you would have to like totally tear down and build up a new infrastructure to support those industries, whereas like in like now those infrastructures and businesses are set up to support those. And then like you said, even if that could happen, maybe in the long run it's possible that it wouldn't be as efficient, and it might end up being more difficult on the environment anyway. Yeah.
It seems to be the case, especially for any short-term solutions like that haven't really been implemented. Like if we could find a way to turn plastic into paper, that might save the environment a lot faster than turning getting rid of plastic straws.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just gotta be creative.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know either. I really don't know anything about the details of these industries. So those are, but yeah, I mean, these are important questions to consider when you're talking about these mass scale societal changes like that, for sure.
Well, I think my wife's about to get home, so you wanna wrap it up?
All right. Well, yeah, thanks for talking with me, man. This was interesting and fun. And
Trying. It's
Yeah.
good to finally talk. We've been interacting for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be fun to talk again if you want to too.
Yeah, sure. If you think of
Yeah.
anything you want to talk about, I'm a big talker.
All right. Cool. Well, yeah, I'll just say what I like to say at the end of all of my episodes, and then you can give any last words there. So, yeah, thanks to everyone for watching another episode of the Mindgasms podcast. And thanks to everyone who subscribes to my channel, likes this video, shares it, or comments on it. And especially thanks to those of you who contribute to me on Patreon. I really appreciate that. And I'll put the link for my page in the description of this video, like I always do. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all. All right, keep having mindgasms, everyone. And any last words there,
I love
Mark?
you too.
There you go. Spread the love. All
All right.
right.
See ya.
Adios until next time, everyone.